Hello everyone, I am Tacit, and I'm going to be going over the Gems of War event objectives for the Don't Worry Be Sappy event, in which the Maple Goldbar is added to the game. This week we have a lot of things going on from the 4th PvP season, and we'll be going over every single thing that the new PvP season ends up bringing. We still have the new mythic that we covered last Friday. This thing is pretty good. Perpetual Skull Storm has a bunch of immunities, has a pretty decent devour rate, and overall it's a really great Skull Devour option, and that is still available in the Galore Gem Guild and VIP chest until this Friday, with it basically ending at the end of Thursday all the way to Friday reset time, so you still have a few days to go and get that. And we have some pretty nice Soulforge this week. We end up having Tesla available in Soulforge for only 100 diamonds, as well as Leprechaun available in the event key drop table, so you basically got the whole early game starter kit for just running Tesla Leprechaun throughout the entire game, so very, very strong if you're on PC mobile to go and end up picking up that. Though, of course, for all platforms, the Leprechaun would be in the event key drop table. But anyways, let's go over to the PvP first. So, of course, PvP, we are now in Season 4. With that, we have two new Immortals, these being Immortal Gemini as well as Immortal Selene. Selene is the main one that you end up getting in the drop table, or the ones that you end up getting from all the tasks and everything. She is pretty similar to, what was it, the first or second PvP that we ended up having? I think it was the first, where we ended up having Immortal Glacia. It's really similar in that it just does a bunch of random true damage, but instead of being freeze based, it has a little bit of extra enchant to go with it. But deals a bunch of true damage to 3 random enemies, boosted by enchanted allies and enemies, and if you're in Bay of Stars, just deals double damage. So generally anything that you'd be hitting there will hopefully be dying in each one of those hits between the double damage and any amount of additional multiplier they end up getting on it, including the fact that it has Arcane, which would also scale with its extra damage for a little bit extra magic. Overall, very similar to a lot of the slightly better true damage ones that we've been getting, where, you know, it's usable. With the double damage, it's definitely fine to use, but outside of that context, you're pretty much not going out of your way to use it. If you're in an area where you can get the double benefit from it, it's good, but if you're outside that context, it's pretty much never going to really be used, which is the same case for pretty much every true damage option here. And Immortal Gemini is no different. It does get to steal life, so that means it does get to keep the life. It takes does true damage to them and then keeps the amount of life that it does. Does it to the first 2 enemies, boosted by purple gems, and if you use in Winter's Reach, you'll pretty much double kill. Unfortunately, this one, similar to that of Immortal Phoenix, is unfortunately a little bit harder to obtain, and unfortunately is not really going to be used much. It's in the same category of kind of like mid-range true damager, where it's not in the better range, not in the worst range. It does have a little bit of extra survivability, but that normally isn't that needed compared to just doing damage quicker in any one of these given game modes. And when it comes down to using it outside of PvP, there are still only 2 that are worthwhile in that regard: Immortal Phoenix and Immortal Ossifer. Immortal Ossifer for really good skull control while having a little bit of true damage, and Immortal Phoenix for its really interesting devour mechanic with its tank ability, as well as a half-decent ability that even outside of its context of its various PvP location can still be used. Of course, I figured let's go open some of the burning marks. We've been holding a little bit here and there, see if we get any of the new ones. Of course, the one that we end up mentioning is quite a bit easier because you end up getting it through a lot of the objectives this week. So for example, if we go over to PvP season, any of the goals, all the way at the end, you would end up getting, the thing's a little bit broken right now, but you do end up getting the Immortal Souls for, what's her name? You end up getting it for her, Immortal Selene. So whenever you end up getting that at the end of any objective, it would be for her. Whenever you get them in any of these season passes, all these grayed out ones, wherever they are, that would end up being her. It's currently a little bit broken at the moment, as they need to go fix the icons, but it is her as the main one, being the Immortal Gemini being the harder to obtain newer one. But anyways, let's see if we can get them. Of course, there is still burning chests as well. Generally, you only want to be doing this if 2 of them are good, and generally speaking, I would say the only time that is worth doing is if it is both Immortal Ossifer and Immortal Phoenix. If both of those are here, it's perfectly fine to go do, but other than that, I don't really think it's worth targeting any specific one. You can if you want, but otherwise the general drop table is just a little bit better for what you end up getting. And hey, we actually did get the new Immortal Selene and a bunch of other ones along the way as well. And yeah, the icon for it's still not working. That's kind of unfortunate. But yeah, it seems like the icon's still not working for those. Interesting. I still want that Immortal Phoenix. Can we get that? That was from last season. I still have not gotten it yet. Really? Still not? Honestly, I almost want to keep going. How many does it take? Honestly, I'm just going to spin the whole thing. There we go, finally. Now I think we have at least 1 copy of each. Though keep in mind, you can't trait them like you normally would with a normal unit. So something like Immortal Phoenix, for example, that's really dependent on its trait, you do need to go and actually get upgraded further. So in that regard, Immortal Celine should actually be pretty easy to go get all of her traits and everything unlocked, as she's the main one that you're going to be getting this season through a lot of the various goals and everything, whereas all the other ones are just in their normal general drop table like they always are, making some things like the Fernax and the new, most notably, Immortal Gemini a little bit harder to obtain. Actually, yeah, we still didn't get a copy of her because there's no targeted way to do it other than if you go and do it through burning chests. It's still something I wish they would kind of tweak it a little bit in the future, like burning chests in general, as the amount of value for them, honestly, not the greatest, unless the drop table is really, really good. I think the biggest issue with it is the featured immortal is always blocking you as one of the drops in the drop table. If the drop table was not this and just this, then it would probably be worthwhile, but it has like 2 pieces of junk. Like, what is the total percent of junk? Basically, it's over 50% junk, where you're either getting the current featured immortal, which you're already going to be getting a billion of during the season, or a bunch of icons that you don't really want. So, not sure if they're going to tweak that at all ever in the future. But anyways, that's most of the new things. There is one other new thing, I guess, worth mentioning, but generally these aren't worth going until after the fact, or at least the golden mark one. The gold mark one, you should always just be going for the, oh yeah, I forgot, I can't do it right now because it requires the amount of points. We'll get that later. But of course, it's generally better to be putting all of your gold marks into deed books just to go get all of your kingdoms upgraded to 20 star, 30 star, all of those post level 30 levels, everything like that. Generally better to go and save out for deed books. As far as the 2 new troops though, they're not horrible. You definitely don't want to buy the gold mark one, but when you do get in the future, this guy deals a bunch of damage to an enemy, boosted based on skulls, and if they use purple mana, it will double the damage and inflict bleed on them. So basically an anti-purple troop that is also purple itself. The most interesting gimmick about this is his trait setup. He has stealthy with enrage when an enemy dies, and a 20% chance to devour a random enemy if an enemy dies. Overall, I feel like if you want to gamble and insta-kill, you're better off just running Megavore for its 5% insta-kill every time you take an extra turn. However, this does have some interesting implications if you're running a team like, I don't know, Wand of Stars, Stellarix, like basically a team that can function with 2 troops, and then putting 2 of him on your team when he's later in a drop table, so you can actually get multiple of him, like Event Key from Gurmwoods in the future, or diamonding him for 8,000 diamonds down the line. But when you do end up getting him down the line, this is interesting in a team that can already survive with 2 troops, Wand of Stars and the Stellarix being the most noteworthy one at the moment, because you might just get some free value. You can also do this with like insta-kill kind of setups with like a mana accumulator into Zolgoth or something similar, where you end up putting one of these in first slot and then the other one in the back, and basically just hope that you end up landing the Devour off of it. It's a pretty low Devour rate, but basically if you had 2 on your team every single time, there'd be a 20% chances that you would end up getting a Devour. Obviously it's not great, but it's kind of funny just getting extra value. I can see this being really funny with Assassin Hero class too, where you just go pure RNG, like Assassin in the first slot, followed by Zolgoth, followed by Mana Accumulator, followed by like one of these on your team. I think the biggest issue with him is that he doesn't have any skull-related mechanics, but at least he has like Enrage and everything else if you kind of want to use him up front. Overall, not the greatest, but funny gimmick if nothing else. I could definitely see some interesting luck-based teams being made out of it, but I don't really see it being practical. Also, it costs gold marks, so you should never, ever buy it during the season. It is a complete waste of gold marks. As far as the other one, this one is not as bad to get because there's not really much to use silver marks on, so it is perfectly fine to go for this guy. Of course, you do have to go pretty deep into PvP season, having accumulated 150,000 points across the entirety of the season to go and end up getting it early. However, as far as what it does, it's a really good Merlantis synergy troop. It has 2 things that's really good for Merlantis as well as for Merfolk. It ends up dealing a bunch of damage to all enemies and then jumbles their team, so basically a way to disorient the team. And if there is a storm, it then deals just a solid 10 more damage to all of them. However, the 2 things that are really useful for the kingdom are the other aspects of it. It gets a blue storm after it does its ability. Unfortunately, no extra turn potential, but blue storm is pretty nice under that restriction. And also, of course, generally, if you're running a 4x Merfolk team, you're 100% 4x Merfolk. And if you're running a 4x Merlantis team, you're probably a 4x Merfolk. And in both of those 2 situations, you end up getting this ability. All Merfolk allies gain 2 magic when matching for an extra turn. So really good synergy in those instances where you would end up using it while not having any extra turn potential. In the times where you do use it, Merlantis and Merfolk restrictions, it'll definitely see some use cases here and there. So honestly, not that bad. One of the better ones that we've had. Honestly, I'm not sure why they keep making the legend one like actually viable and the mythic one pretty much pointless. So even if this was useful, you generally don't want to go for it though. 25 deep books is way better than any one mythic in the entire game. Honestly, even the strongest mythics in the game I don't even think are worth 25 deep books, and a lot of the ones that they've been putting here are way weaker than that, so it's just better to get them down the line when they're in Venki drop table, diamond drop table, stuff like that. Anyways, that's everything with the PvP season, so that will be lasting for the next 10 weeks, so if you want to go and mess around with that, that'll be available. Beyond that, or sorry, next 11 weeks. Doesn't PvP go for 11 weeks? That always throws me off. Isn't it 11 instead of 10? Wait. Wait, where is it? Wait. Alliance. How do you check? There's a page where you could check. Here it is. Yeah, my bad. 11 weeks, not 10 weeks. It's the campaigns that last for 10 weeks and have 1 week of downtime. These last for 11 weeks. But anyways, you have 11 weeks to go do everything for the season. Anyways, in other news, next thing, where should we start? Okay, let's actually start from the top and go over the new event troop. So, of course, this is something we've been saving for last most videos lately. However, it is really worth mentioning these days. Maple Goldbar. So the last time we've had a good glory troop was what? Lurk and Dirk, or whatever his name was? That one goblin with the wish gem mechanic and everything. But we finally got another one to finally go and contest Queen Titania as far as best faerie fire option. I still feel like you're going to be using Queen Titania most of the time. However, this has a very interesting use case. It creates 5 faerie fire gems and 5 burning gems. And if that is all that it did, it would be completely dead content. You would never use this thing ever. Even if it was like 10 mana cost, you probably still wouldn't use it. However, there is one very specific sentence here that makes it actually good, worthwhile. And of course, auto extra turn. That is not bad. Generally speaking, anytime you add this to anything, you're probably increasing its viability by at least like 2 times, 3 times. But this actually makes it usable. This makes it into an alternative 4 times burner. If you need a burner in early game, this might actually legitimately be your best way to 4 times burn the opposing team if you need it for some kind of mechanic. But on top of that, you have 5 faerie fire gems. If you clear all 5 of these, you're almost guaranteed to go and faerie fire the entire enemy team, or at least 3 out of 5. Because I don't think it retroactively goes and does it when there's when you end up doing it. I think it re-rolls each one individually, so it's not guaranteed that you end up getting it, but still. That's a lot of faerie fire to do for what is auto extra turn. So if you go and cast this and cast something like, I don't know, Leprechaun from our same kingdom, you just go and clear out the entire board, 4 times faerie fire, 4 times burn, pretty much the entire enemy team, and then boom, you're good to go. You got a bunch of mana accumulation along the way. They're now all burning faerie fire, so you can end up doing a triple damage burning team with them. You could do some kind of burning boost ratio team, and most notably, you could do 50% more spell damage to their entire team. This is very, very, very good for only 13 mana costs. And yeah, I could definitely see this being used. There are a lot of times where you probably won't use this. There's a lot of times, for example, where double Queen Titania is going to be stronger than this, especially in its own kingdom restriction. But I could definitely see this being used if you have a team that's already a pretty good core setup of 3, but you want to have 50% extra spell damage. This is probably going to be the most convenient way to do that, rather than putting like a Queen Titania there, or one of the other faerie fire freeze options, or something similar there. Whatever that one guy was called that had that support troop mechanic. But basically, you're going to be using this as your faerie fire option now if you only need 1. If you need like 2 or 3 in order to fit a damage source, you're still running Queen Titania, particularly in a double instance. But if you only have 1 space left and you still want to run faerie fire mechanic, this is going to be on your team quite often. So yeah, really nice. Basically just a flat 50% extra spell damage across all battles whenever you end up utilizing it. Obviously it has a little bit of setup to get things going, but yeah, definitely worth doing. Also, I just saw Queen Titania costs $50. Gosh, do not buy that. If you want a cheaper Queen Titania, just click your event key drop table and you got yourself your Queen Titania. Yeah, Queen Titania is in the drop table for event keys, as well as a couple other things which we'll go over in a moment. But the most noteworthy ones to mention that are in the more obtainable category are Queen Titania. She's pretty much the best faerie fire option in the game, at least prior to today, though honestly, you're still going to be using her a lot. The main thing that makes her viable is not necessarily her final trait. Her final trait is one of the reasons why she's used. Faerie fire every single time you take an extra turn, but there are better faerie fire options out there, multiple now. However, the main reason why she's normally used is this combined with what her ability is. She has a really good ratio of how good this is for faerie fire relative to how much damage she does on her ability. Even the best ratio out of anything in the entire game that can currently faerie fire, where on top of that, she also deals a bunch of damage to all enemies, boosted by red enemies and allies, so a double boost. And on top of all that, she also gets extra turn if there's enough red on the board. And a lot of situations where you're using her, you probably have some amount of red generation, red storm, something similar, in order to go get those reds that you need so that you can end up getting the extra turn off of her. So overall, really good ratio in that regard. Beyond that, Child of Summer, really good in power, converts brown to red, just really good in just red synergies. But beyond that, the real thing that's here is actually way, way lower. But if you somehow do not currently own a Leprechaun in early game, you do want to go open some amount of event keys until you get yourself a Leprechaun. Shouldn't take that many at all. Honestly, I could probably throw 10 right now and probably get a Leprechaun. Definitely within 50. But yeah, you definitely want to get yourself a Leprechaun. You probably see me using at least one team, if not multiple teams, every single week. Ends up mentioning this guy as if everyone has it, because it's generally low enough rarity that you can. But if you somehow do not currently own Leprechaun, open like every last event key you can until you do, because this thing is so absurdly good. It's empower into a bunch of mana accumulation. You also get a bunch of free gold, but basically explodes pretty much every green on the board. In early game, it might not do enough, but as you get a little bit deeper, it will do absolutely every green on the board, and does that automatically on turn 1, which is a really, really good amount of mana accumulation, and it is super easy to get this week. Let's see, how many keys will it take until we get to one? Let me see, let's do a head count on how many it will take. I would want to say like around 20-ish. We're at like what now? 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's see. Watch. I'm doing this now, and it's going to take me forever. 8, 9, 10. Oh gosh, there's too many ultra rares in the drop table. 11, 12, 13. Of course, every time we get an ultra rare, there's a chance that he drops. 14, 15, 16. It's going to be a bad example. We're going to go like 100 keys. 17. 18. Hey, another Queen Titania though. 19, 20, 21. Oh gosh, what have we done? 22. I assure you, he's in this drop table. We just saw like 7 of them. 23. Watch, he probably already came in. I didn't even notice. 24, 25, 26, 27. Gosh, at this point, I should have just rolled a 50. 28. 29. Keep in mind, you do get bulk discount when you do it, unless you don't have the physical keys already. 30, 31, 32. This is a really bad example, by the way. 33, 30. I'm in too deep to back down now. 35, 36, 37, 38. What have we done? 39, 40. I assure you he's more common than this. 41, 42, 43, 44, 45. Gosh, at this point, I should just cut to the 100-something when we finally have them. 46, 47. I'm in too deep to back down now, though. We're going all the way through this bit until we get it. 50, 51, 52. I'm about to hit the button again. 53, 54. We're going to get a mythic at this rate. 55. Well, we'll get a mythic before we get this leprechaun. 57. 58, 59. We seen it from the other drop table. We know it's in here. No way. This video's the video length. Is this gonna be us opening this event key like the entire time? It's like, why is this video an hour long? 67, I think. I've lost count at this point. Honestly, I think we give up and just hit the button. Wow, 70. You will most likely have better luck than this, but it took about 72. In the almost worst key scenario, it should take under 100 event keys. Wow. Though we did get 7 when we opened 200, which is a ratio of like, what, about 30-ish, 20-something-ish? But yeah, around 72 or whatever on earth that number was. But he is in there, I assure you. And he's normally way more common than that. He's basically a 21.6% chance divided by however many ultra rares there are in the kingdom. I think there's about 5. So it's about a 4-ish% chance or so, like 3-point-something, 4-ish% chance that you end up getting him every single time, which makes sense, because when we opened up 200, it was around a 1 in 20-something, as far as how many keys, like 20-something it was. So yeah, that makes sense. It's around a 3.8-ish, 3.9% chance, somewhere around there, that you specifically get Leprechaun from that drop table, but that is an extreme over-drop rate outlier. But definitely make sure to go get him. He is very, very, very good, and you will probably use him for the rest of time as until something better comes around. He's been pretty much the meta to some degree for most teams for like 8 years now or something, and still is to this day. It might not be the best thing in every option, but definitely a great accessible low rarity option that's even more accessible this week. So definitely make sure to go and get him. Anyways, let's go a little bit more in depth in the event key drop table, even though at this point we've probably seen almost every single thing in it. Other than the mythics at this point. So, as far as things that are in the event key drop table right now, or that aren't, I mean, this includes the Green Tower of Doom, which is only from Green Tower of Doom events. The other things are the 5 Sunken Fleet troops. These are only from throwing Chaos Shards at the Sunken Fleet faction. The Crackle Leaf is only from the current world event. You cannot get it through event keys. You can only get it through the current world event this week. And then it'll be in the drop table all following events. The Star is only in the Vault Key drop table, which, hey, I haven't mentioned it yet, but Vault Key event weekend this weekend. So definitely make sure to go and farm that up as the last one that's probably coming before we get the Flower Dragon. So last time to really go and stockpile a bunch of Dragonite if you want to go do so. Of course, you could farm it whenever, but it's a lot easier to do during faction events. I mean, during Vault event weekends, I mean. And beyond that, the other thing that is not in drop table is the green gem dragon, which is only from the gem dragon drop table. Everything else that you see here is in drop table, with the most noteworthy 2 that you're looking for, or technically 3, being Queen Titania, which is a really good fairy fire into overall damage option. The Leprechaun, which we end up mentioning and going on a whole tangent on trying to get it. This thing is really good for empower into a bunch of mana accumulation and can be pretty much thrown onto any team for a good amount of mana accumulation. And then we go for the brown to red converter, which is somewhere's here. How do I forget where she is? There it is, Child of Summer. Those are like the 3 things you want to pick up if you don't already have them through other means. So definitely make sure to not leave this week without double Queen Titania, 1 copy of Child of Summer, and don't go as dry on Leprechaun. That should be everything you need then. As far as high rarity stuff, it's pretty forgettable. Nothing in the high rarity section here is pretty noteworthy. You could go the entire game without owning any of the 3 and you would be perfectly fine, other than for upgrading the kingdom, of course. But aside from upgrading the kingdom, you never really use the troops. They're pretty much just there to go and upgrade Bright Forest to higher star levels and everything. Alright, beyond that, guild event. So as far as the guild event, we have journey event. Basically, just keep clicking bigger number and make sure to always use the crackle leaf on your team. Keep in mind, unlike things like raid events and what's the other one? Raid events and tower events. Any of those 2, you generally don't want to be doing. Invasion was the word I was looking for. But raid and evasion events, you do not need to upgrade your troop in order to get the max score. However, keep in mind, when it comes to journey events, you do have to upgrade the troop to be able to get your maximum score. If you don't fully ascend this thing, you will only be getting 2 times score, whereas when it's fully ascended, you'll be getting 3 times score. So it is highly advised to go and max it out. Keep in mind, you can still max it out by only buying to tier 3, like you normally would for a lot of other events. Just go to tier 3 or 4, and if you go to tier 3, you would have to double blue orb your dragon, and if you go to here, you can either double up and then use double orb on it in order to run multiple of it on your team, or if you still only want to run on your team, you can go and save 1 blue orb, ascend it, and then only have to use 1 blue orb in order to get it max. But you want to do one or the 2, either go into tier 3 and double blue orb, or tier 4 and single blue orb, or double blue orb if you want to use multiple on a team, like 2 or 3 of them. For the most part this week, you're going to have enough support that you're not really going to need a multi-up on it, mostly because you can spam Queen Titania. You also have access to things like the new fairy fire thing we were just going over earlier, so you can end up using that instead, as it is under the red category. Keep in mind, you don't have access to Leprechaun and such, as it is not under red Fae. Even though it is Fae, it is not red, so you won't be able to go and utilize it. So where's that one red-yellow thing? Is it not here? Why am I blind? Where is it? Wait, is it not in this category? Oh yeah, there it is. Maple. I was gonna say, there's no way it's not. But you can end up using this as well to offset if you don't end up having the Queen Titanias. But of course, it is in the event key drop table, so pretty easy to go and end up attaining this week compared to other weeks. But overall, just keep clicking on bigger number and just keep going through with your fully ascended dragon, and you should be good to go. Beyond that, other things to mention. The events this week. Tuesday, we have our faction event for the Sunken Fleet, which is a red-blue restriction for Sunken Fleet. Wednesday, we have just a Fae bonus, which is a lot of things this week that end up utilizing it directly or indirectly. Also keep in mind, all Faes from Bright Forest have 20% extra bonus stats this week, including Hero. So it is useful to be using Hierophant for 20% this week for things like the Thursday class event, or if you just want more damage in general, but also a lot of them have quite a bit more damage this week, like Queen Titania and such, so even more viable than they normally already are. This Thursday, we have ourselves the class event for Hierophant. Hierophant is interesting, and that's the only triple damage burning hero class that has cleanse on extra turn. There are some use cases where this is useful, like if the enemy has entangle and freeze but doesn't have stun. Of course, this isn't too common these days because a lot of times when they have both, they're using elementalist, which also includes stun on it. But if it is a kind of team that's only like entangle or freeze heavy, it's really good in those kind of situations as long as they don't have a stun to go with it. And this Friday, as we mentioned, we have a Vault event weekend, so great time to be farming within the game, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, going and just spamming Explore, spamming PvP, and getting a ton of loot during the time, more so than normal. As far as Soulforge, we kind of already mentioned on it briefly, and we'll be showing a team in a little bit, but Tesla is in drop table. This is a really good week if you're a new player. You got like the whole new player starting kit at this point. Just Leprechaun and do a bunch of Teslas, and you're good to go. You got everything you need. But yes, on PC Mobile, we do have Tesla and Soulforge. Really absurdly strong, especially for how basically free it is relative to how good it is. It is stronger than most mythics in the game. Probably one of the top 10 damage sources in the entire game, despite being only a legendary. It only deals 8 scatter damage. So if the first part was his whole ability, it'd be really bad. True damage, scatter damage. But this is boosted by all ally and enemy armor. This is ridiculously relevant because the end enemy armor part This means it scales through the entire game because regardless of how strong your enemy team is always upscaling based on them. And since you're doing it based on their armor, which you're doing true damage, which means you do not deal armor damage to them when you go and caster, this means you can generally 2-3 shot pretty much the entire game while using Tesla, depending on what your stats on your team are and the stats of the enemy team are, and if they have spell reduction or not. But generally speaking, it's a 2-3 shot throughout the entire game. And yeah, just really, really, really good. It doesn't really matter. You just have to go and get her mana up. Just do it by any means. And then boom, just cast her a few times and you auto win pretty much every fight in the game where you're allowed to use her. Obviously, there are a lot of restrictions where you cannot use her. But assuming you're allowed to use anything, you can use this damage source throughout the entire game. There are eventually better endgame options, like way down the line, like Stellarex and the such, or insta-kill troops when you're fighting stuff that's like really, really strong. However, this is enough to get you through the whole game. Just make some kind of team with like Tesla with Leprechaun, 2 Teslas, Leprechaun, double Tesla with a bunch of other mana accumulation. You're just good to go. There's pretty much nothing where, if you're allowed to use her, she's basically a viable option, basically. She might not be the absolute best option when accounting for literally everything in the game, but she's always a good option regardless. And for the fact that you can build a team out of her for basically the cost of 1,600 diamonds to get double of her, really, really cheap. And only 800 for one, absurdly cheap. Do not leave this week without at least one, and ideally 2 if you don't already have any. Beyond that, the only other thing worth mentioning as far as mythics are concerned is Rarity and Weaver. It's been good for a lot of Guild War related stuff. I'm not sure exactly how good it'll be in the new format of Guild War these days. However, the main thing that makes it good is its trait setup combined with its ability. It has almost a flawless trait setup. It has stealthy, so it can't be targeted directly, impervious, so you can't stun it or anything else to get rid of its stealthy, and has a summon of one of the best skull troops in the entire game that basically perpetually does 3 times skull damage to almost anything that doesn't have immune to stuff, as it has auto skull, it has auto web while doing triple damage to any webbed enemies. And pretty much every kill you do, not always, but almost every kill you do, you'll be able to summon this per kill. So really, really, really good for making a comeback as well. And on top of that, it even has a good ability. It gets to web all enemies, which makes it one of the best webbers in the entire game. It also gets to deal a bunch of true damage to the last 2 enemies, which if that's all that it did, it wouldn't be that good. But if it gets a kill with that true damage, it also gets to basically full board clear for mana accumulation, which not only gets you even more mana, a completely clean board, but also can end up extra turning. And then you just keep doing everything again. So overall, really great. Only 20 mana costs too. You would think this would be almost like a 27, 28. Nope, 20 mana costs. All the weird ones that they do 24 that are way too weak, yet they make something that's like among the better ones. Definitely the better like 10-ish% of them. And yeah, only 20 mana costs to go do so. So really nice. If you don't already have it, might be worth considering as Guild War is around the corner. Actually, what was the thing? I don't think they've changed it yet. I think it's coming. Yeah, right there. We're getting either the update tomorrow or next week's Tuesday. So either tomorrow or next week's Tuesday we'll be getting the update. Probably more likely next week's Tuesday, but it could be tomorrow. You never know. And then, of course, 2 weekends from now. Not this weekend, not next weekend, but the following weekend because we're here for this weekend. But this weekend's Vault event, next weekend's Bounty, and next weekend, unless it changes, is going to be the return of Guild Wars after, what, a year? 2 years? How long has it been? It felt like forever. I think it's only been a year, but gosh, it's felt like 3 years since we've last had a Guild War. But, yeah, that'll be Guild Wars right there for the final return of Guild Wars 2. But anyways, yeah, so that's Soulforge. Oh yeah, as far as weapons, Trickster Shot, I don't know. Trickster Shot has a armor elimination with a magic gain. I feel like it's very situational current state of game. The momentum of the current state of the game is getting way too extra turn heavy to really bother with this. However, with that being said, there are things that are extra turn heavy that are available this week. The 2 most noteworthy ones are Mystic Manuscript. This ends up exploding all purples on the board pretty much and grants a random status effect to all Mystic allies and summons a random Mystic. Has a lot of Mystic synergies and is generally used as a summoning weapon from this kingdom if you end up needing one. But the really big one is the Celestial Flask. I believe this was money locked in the past, but has come back, I think, like 3 or 4 times now, and this is one of those a few times. But yeah, it comes around whenever Bright Forest event is back, but this was originally money locked from an event way back when, and is pretty much the best way in the entire game to do potions. If you want to mess around with the potion mechanic, and you currently have no mythics or anything else that do the potion mechanic particularly well, this is the best thing to do it out of anything in the entire game. It creates 3 potions of either blue, green, red, yellow, or brown. Or purple, everything but brown. And then, of course, the all-elusive thing that makes everything viable. If that's all that it did, that'd be horrible. But it gains an extra turn, which makes it, of course, absurdly good because you will just get 3 potions immediately. You just use something to go board clear. You then get basically infinite mana, and then you just keep going over and over again. The biggest issue with this is it's not always going to create blue or red, so you don't always get your mana back into this weapon, but you'll always be getting mana back into something on your team, as something on your team will be using at least one of the other 3 colors of green, yellow, or purple. So as long as you have something in there that can end up utilizing those, even if you just have Leprechaun, boom, you're already covering 2 of those. So as long as you have one other thing covering yellow to offset it, you're pretty much good to go, and just building some kind of team around that. Overall, I don't feel like I use it that often. it's a fun, gimmicky weapon, and the best way to do potions pretty much in the entire game, if not the absolute best. However, it's more gimmicky than useful in a lot of situations. It's a lot of fun to use and mess around with, and I highly advise getting it just to have it, especially if this mechanic's ever actually really viable for some reason. But generally, compared to like Wand of Stars, like the Wand of Stars comparison normally whenever it comes to any mana accumulation weapon like this, you're generally better off just going Wand of Stars rather than this. But it's a fun gimmick. If you haven't tried it yet, definitely advise getting it just to mess around with it, if nothing else, even if you don't really plan to use it for much. And yeah, that's everything for Soulforge. Anyways, are we up to the teams? Is that everything? I don't feel like I'm forgetting something. Of course, the Mythic is still in Glory Gem Guild and via Peaches drop table if you still want to try for that. Let's see, can we randomly get it? No, we already have one from when we did the video last Friday. But yeah, we didn't end up getting it. But keep in mind, if you want the normal drop table, it will be available starting on Friday. So after Friday reset, you'll be able to go back to normal drop table then if you don't want to end up getting it. Beyond that, yeah, let's go over all the teams. So, of course, all the teams throughout the week. Let's start all the way from the top. World Event. World Event is restricted to specifically red Fae. This includes your weapon as well. Of course, it doesn't have to be Fae, but you do have to be red. So that does mean you can use Sun Spear for Perpetual Red Storm. So do keep that in mind. As Perpetual Red Storm works really good for this event because you're already forced to a pure red team. It's not the tankiest, but it does get to do Entangle Freeze to start a battle, with the Entangle, of course, making it a little bit tankier. But beyond that, we're using Wand of Stars just to keep herself durable, or, you know, blessed and everything else just to keep it going, mana accumulation. Crackle Leaf, you're forced to have to use, but honestly, it's not that bad. Deals a bunch of damage to an enemy, creates a bunch of red gems. It's a standard journey troop that we've been getting recently. But, you know, 10 red gems, not the greatest compared to what it used to be back in the day, but still not horrible. And keep in mind, if your guild does go deep enough, you will be able to get enough shininess without using any shiny keys to bring it down to 14 mana cost instead of 15, which makes it a little bit more useful. Also has 20% stats this week, so it hits a little bit higher. Plus, we'll have double magic in the event game mode, so whatever you see here will be doing double of that. And of course, we're just using Queen of Tanya as our main damage source. Not only does she have 20% extra damage this week, but we have the Faerie Fire for 50% more damage on top of that, and it gets to hit all enemies. And if you have enough reds on the board between our Red Storm and clearing out the board with Wand of Stars and everything else, we should be able to go and get extra turns. So we could just double extra turn into Queen of Tanya, extra turn into this, and basically just keep extra turn spamming until you win, ideally. Lower Rarity team works somewhat similarly, except we're using Summer Knight to go tank. This thing can gain a bunch of armor and attack, and gains barrier to make sure you're really durable. If some skulls do get through, you have 40% score reduction. Beyond that, we're using Crackle Leaf because we have to, but also for mana accumulation here. We're also getting quite a bit of a bonus. This team is 4 times... oh, no, I'm still using Sun Spear here. However, you can use Hierophant instead if you want. I forgot, it's not 4 times, it's only 3 times, as we are using Sun Spear here for the extra mana accumulation. But keep in mind, if you don't have it fully traded and everything else like that, so, or if you just want to go down the other route, you can go the Hierophant route here and end up getting the bonuses to be quite a bit higher across the board. So you end up getting a lot higher magic, you end up getting a lot more extra durability, and depending on where your stats are, this might actually be more worthwhile than Perpetual Red Storm, so you can kind of change it depending on what you need. Also, if you don't go Wand of Stars, this might also be useful because you do have 20% extra stats when you end up using Hierophant. So if you are going a weapon that specifically isn't Wand of Stars, you might want to consider that, as if your ability, if you're using like any kind of burning weapon or anything like that, or, you know, any kind of damage weapon or mana accumulation weapon that does scale based on magic, you might want to have that 20% extra stats instead of having Perpetual Red Storm. But generally speaking, as long as you have fully traded Sun Spear, I think the Perpetual Red Storm will outweigh having the extra damage. So worth considering. You can go either way. Or at least depends how you want to go and run it, or whichever one you want to get class XP for if you don't have either of the max. Like if you don't have Hierophant max and want to go get XP for it, now would be a great week to do so, as every single battle will be 2 XP per battle. Anyways, beyond that, other things we have going on. Tuesday class event, or sorry, Tuesday faction event is for Sunken Fleet, which is a red-blue, though of course you're allowed to use any colored hero weapon. For the first team here, we're just using a pretty standard Rowan quick heal team, just using Harpy Mage with turn 2 Empower, basically, in order to go do mana accumulation. Here we're using a Wand of Stars and an Angry Mob and just insta-kill spam. I was originally going to use the other Mythic, but then I realized, oh no, it doesn't use red or blue, so I wasn't able to use it. Whereas, you know who does use blue? Even though High King Iron Gut is very similar to the new Mythic, they do have 1 color variance. So when you're in a restriction like this, you actually cannot use the new Mythic. You actually have to use Iron Gut instead. So I figured I'd try it there, but yeah, we can't because she doesn't use blue. They're very similar, but not quite the same. As far as all their use cases. As far as Spear Faction is concerned, we got Mirage Queen into triple Order Elemental, basically 50% mana start with score reduction, into feeding into all your Water Elementals. You shouldn't really ever be casting a Mirage Queen unless you're doing it as a finisher for the most part, or to deny the enemy's Mirage Queen in the final fight. You're mostly just spamming the Water Elementals over and over again until you AoE kill the entire enemy team, and you even get some stun on top of that, as well as a bunch of blue link. So you basically just want to keep spamming that over and over again. Ideally, you want to reach the final fight with your Mirage Queen still intact. The main reason you don't double up on Mirage Queen is you want to have triple of him so you can utilize as much water link as possible in order to spam your AoE damage as quickly as possible. So you, just want to try winning quick enough before the Mirage Queen dies, rather than doubling up and going to the final fight with one Mirage Queen and a triple water elemental. You normally just want to tank it out and try going with the full team and have Mirage Queen in the triple water elemental instead of double. As far as the Hierophant class is concerned, we actually have quite a bit of a diverse team for once. We have Dawnbringer, or any just high damage weapon that uses red, like Summer's Fury or anything similar, and is feeding it a bunch of mana. We have Baron the Red to go feed it directly. We have Leprechaun to go feed everything directly. We have the Maple Goldbar to go Faerie Fire and to go feed mana with auto extra turn. So it should end up working out pretty well, as you would only cast this when you have alignment. You could do this for your initial mana accumulation if nothing else is alignment. Your main weapon to go kill everything. And keep in mind, Hierophant has 20% extra stats this week, so things like Dawnbringer 20% stronger, as well as any weapon they use here. Summer's Fury, whatever you're using, is 20% stronger for using Hierophant. And of course, it's using this to go get Faerie Fire if you need more damage, or for mana accumulation. You can also go down the mana link or something similar, or even a double Leprechaun, triple Leprechaun kind of situation if you want to keep it simple as well. Beyond that, Underspire is specifically just a Bright Forest. So anything from Bright Forest you can end up using. So as far as what you can use here, for the higher rarity team, we're just using this to go get our Faerie Fires pretty much right off the bat, and it is Queen Titania spamming. And you would just cast this, cast your Leprechaun, that would go trigger all your Faerie Fire, and then you just keep spamming Queen Titania until you win. That's pretty much the whole game plan there. And of course, you can offset with a hero weapon, though keep in mind, if you do offset with a hero weapon, it does specifically have to be a Bright Forest hero weapon. It cannot just be any, like in the other game mode where you're allowed to use any red weapon. Speaking of which, we did use the cheaper Summer's Fury team on the cheaper low rarity team. In this case, we'll end up using the Summer's Fury. So we end up using this in order to go and just be a nice, easy to obtain weapon. You get this just from going Red Mastery on your hero. You get it automatically for free just from progressing the game. Maple Goldbar, of course, is in the, you can get it for glory. It's only 400 glory to end up getting a copy. Crackle Leaf is like 210 gems to go get from the Journey event, and you want to be doing that anyways to help out your guild. And Leprechaun, as you saw, is very common. You'll probably get it in like one event key. And definitely not 72, but he's very common, supposedly, in the event key drop table, around a 2.8% chance that was around there to end up getting him per event key that you open. So, yeah, not too bad. And definitely highly advise getting him. Really good mana accumulator for the entirety of the game, and you definitely do not want to leave the week without him if you don't already have him. And lastly, of course, I have to show it because Tesla's in Soulforge, Leprechaun's in Event Key Drop Table. You get the shield for free just from doing 250 wins on the Urskia hero class. You honestly don't even need the shield. This team is literally just Leprechaun and double Tesla. You could offset it with like another mana accumulator or whatever else you want to do with it. But we gotta show the Tesla team. It has to happen. I don't know, where do I want to bring it in? Let's go Sword's Edge, I guess. To the Explore! Alright, let's go show it. So, of course, let's see, where is it? Tesla. Should we go use the new trip too? Let's go diversify a little bit. Let's go. I'll use the other thing. Make it even cheaper as well. Where's the new Maple Leaf thing? There we go, Maple Leaf. Alright, we're going all in. I think that covers every color now, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, that's every color. Nice. Okay, we're going to roll with this. So, Urskia Shield, you get from 250 wins on their Urskia hero class. Tesla is, which is Sentinel, by the way. Tesla, you end up getting from the Soulforge for 800 diamonds this week if you're on PC Mobile. Maple Goldbar is available for only 400 glory. And Leprechaun is available in definitely less than 72 event keys. And let's go and, yeah, let's go do this. Our Scare Shield's definitely not required here, by the way. I would say the rest of the team kind of as a core kind of is to some degree, but they're all really accessible. Our Scare Shield's mostly just here if you want to go and use it for a little bit of a boost, as it does give you additional armor, which does help morale. I believe it also gives 1 mana to all allies, which in this situation is like an infinite mana. I believe it gives 1 mana to all allies once you have it upgraded, right? Yeah, it does. How convenient. We were exactly 1 mana short on everything. And, of course, you could use our Scare Shield to buff it up to give you even more armor, though you could do it to anything on your team, like first slot to make sure it's nice and tanky. Then we can go and get our Faerie Fire. Has auto extra turn, so we're guaranteed to get it. Every single one that gets hit with that green thing has 50% extra damage that they take. If there's a bunch on the board, well, you know who explodes every green, and you know what's green? Faerie Fire gems. So we'll go and do that, get all of them Faerie Fired. We got all of them except for 1 Faerie Fired at this point. And, yeah, now we just go and do the Tesla. And Tesla, even though she is not boosted by magic, she is boosted by Faerie Fire. So even though giving her more magic does not increase her damage, giving things more armor does, like we did with Urskia Shield. However, even though she doesn't gain more extra magic damage from magic, she does gain extra magic damage from Faerie Fire. So in this situation, she will do extra damage, and as you can see, we killed literally everything except for the guy who wasn't Faerie Fired. So if he was Faerie Fired, he too would have died. Unfortunately, we were slightly short on damage. If we would have gotten all 4 Faerie Fires, he would have died there, there. But as we mentioned earlier, unfortunately, exploding 4 Faerie Fire gems does not guarantee that you will Faerie Fire the entire enemy team. Even if you do 5, it's not guaranteed. It's likely, you know, you have a decent chance, but it's not 100% for sure that you'll end up getting it. Plus, of course, things have immunity. You can get past that by using Wand of Stars, but this is a low rarity team, so I try not to show Wand of Stars on a low rarity team. I know I do sometimes, because it's kind of hard to not, just because of how good it is. And it's technically somewhat accessible. As long as you farm a couple Vault Event weekends, you'll generally have it. And of course, this weekend, Vault Event weekend. Alright, listen, I want to go try getting the full sweep again, because that was fun for the previous one. The only problem is I don't have Leprechaun up. Are we going to go out of our way just to go get Leprechaun up? Because honestly, at this point, I think I might, just to go get the full sweep again. Because I want to see the full thing from scratch again. So, of course, we want a little bit extra tank ability, so let's just put this on Hero. Doesn't matter what you apply it to, you just apply it to what's closest to death. Or if nothing is I guess first law if you want to. Alright, so now that we have that, let's go get our Faerie Fire. So we do this. None of them popped. That's fine. We simply just do Leprechaun, and now they're all Faerie Fired, except for one. No! Again, it happened. We didn't get the guy. And it's not that he's not immune, or like he's not immune to it. It's just, it doesn't Faerie Fire all of them. Even though we got 5 of them, and unfortunately did not land. But you know what? We'll try again. I want my 4 times Faerie Fire. Did we get it? Yeah, there we go. We got our 4 times Faerie Fire. And an extra turn to go with it. And now the should kill. We did our Urskia Shield. We did our full setup. They're all Faerie Fired. Do Tesla. Boom. 1 shot. And, yeah, there's the low rarity team for one-shot Explore 12, I guess, at this point. Though, of course, you can double Tesla, stuff like that. But, yeah, it ends up working out pretty well. Obviously, you don't necessarily want to go for the full setup. Just going for double cast is generally going to be a lot quicker. But if you are in a situation where you can end up setting it up, ends up working out pretty well. But, yeah, overall, great options. A lot of good early game options that last pretty much through the entire game this week. Really good Faerie Fire and Burning. Like, this is probably your best Burning. There are better ways to do Burning these days. But depending on where you are in the game, this might be your best burn option. And is also probably your best Faerie Fire option aside from Queen Titania. So, yeah, overall, really nice. Great selection of stuff this week. And if you're on PC Mobile, definitely make sure to pick up your Tesla. But anyways, guys, I believe that does it for now. If you have any other questions, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. We'll be messing around with the new PvP season and everything else later tonight at 8 p.m. Standard Time. And, yeah, we'll go from there. Definitely feel free to leave a like on the video. Helps a lot and is greatly appreciated. Any comments, feel free to leave below. We'll get around to all of them. And all the teams mentioned in this video will be in the description below if you want to go and copy-paste them, as well as the pinned comment. I will catch you guys later. Goodbye, everyone, and thanks for watching.